Welcome to my 181st video on my work with OO gauge. In this part I'll be dealing with a Hornby Dublo engine shed, together with a Dublo engine shed extension kit that I bought for my Hornby Dublo 3-rail tabletop railway. Back in part 174 I built the super quick card kit for a 2-road engine shed and placed that on my 3-rail tabletop as seen here. The Super Quick kit built quite a nice shed, but ultimately I didn't feel that it was quite the right thing for the Dublo tabletop, and I received some comments to that same effect. So I decided to try to go with the more consistent approach and to see if I could buy the engine shed that Hornby themselves introduced to their Dublo catalogue, since that would fit in better with the other items I have on the tabletop, such as the Dublo goods depot seen here. In part 177 I added another siding to the engine shed area going down beside the Super Quick shed. The standard Hornby Dublo engine shed accommodates 2 tracks. Also in the Dublo catalogue was an engine shed extension kit which allowed you to add another 2-track bay to an existing Dublo engine shed. I kept an eye on eBay UK and I managed to buy both a Dublo engine shed and a Dublo engine shed extension kit. Unfortunately, I couldn't obtain both from a single vendor, so I had to buy them separately and pay for 2 lots of shipping from the UK. As it happened, though I bought the shed a day or 2 before I bought the extension kit arrived first. Shipping from the UK to Canada, where I live, has been quite erratic recently, sometimes with frustratingly long waits. When the extension kit arrived, I put it on the tabletop beside the Super Quick shed as seen here, but I couldn't actually do anything useful with it as the extension kit is no use at all on its own. It only works when you have an existing Dublo shed with which to combine it. Finally, several days later, the shed itself arrived. It was in nicely weathered condition as seen here, although I think that's actually more just accumulated dust and fading from sitting on a layout rather than deliberate weathering. The shed arrived like this, fully assembled and basically ready to go, although I did notice that one corner was a bit wonky. The Dublo shed is open at both ends, no back wall, just a roof with 2 side walls. When I placed the Super Quick shed, I didn't have buffers on the ends of the tracks inside the shed, as the Super Quick shed was enclosed with a back wall, so the back wall itself would prevent trains going off the ends of the tracks, and emitting buffers allowed a bit more room on the tracks inside the shed. But with the Dublo shed I was going to need to have buffers on the ends of the tracks, and I'd used all of the Dublo buffer stops that I had. I managed to pick up some more locally, from British model trains in Cambridge, Ontario. But these were Dublo 2-rail stops, and they had weird metal bits riveted to the front of their bases, presumably so that they could be hooked into the sleepers on the end of 2-rail tracks. Those metal bits just weren't going to work with 3-rail track. There was nowhere for those bits to go on the end of a 3-rail track piece. The best that could be done was to put the metal piece on the buffer stop over or under the connecting tab on the end of the 3-rail track. Either way would leave a pointless gap between the end of the track base and the frame of the buffer stop. So those metal bits had to go. The metal piece was held onto the plastic base of the buffer stop by a rivet, so it seemed that the simplest approach would be to drill out that rivet. I put a bit slightly larger than the head of the rivet into my electric drill and drilled off the head of the rivet. Then I was able to pop off the metal piece and then push out the remaining headless rivet. I did that to all 4 of these buffer stops, leaving them basically ready for use with 3-rail track. I got the Dublo shed onto the bench, ready to proceed with fitting the extension. As you'll see, I managed to mess up this process quite a bit before I got it right. The side walls were held onto the roof of the shed by 4 screws with washers, so clearly it would be possible to remove the side walls by loosening those screws. The screws were pretty rusty. Well, actually, I think it was the washers that were rusty. The screws were brass, I think. They were, perhaps not surprisingly for the time, slot-head screws, which I hate as they're a major pain to work with as compared to crosshead Phillips screws or Robertson screws with square holes in the heads, which are very commonly used here in Canada and are my first choice if available when I'm buying screws. Here's the extension kit. No walls, just a roof section and a bag of bits. Here are the bits taken out of the bag. 2 end pillars, 2 mid pillars, a bag of screws and washers, and 10 black plastic ventilator pieces. And here are the screws and washers taken out of their small bag. 8 screws and 8 washers, all present and correct, although one of the washers appears to be a replacement. These washers and screws showed some corrosion, so apparently this kit had previously been assembled with a shed and then it was taken apart before sale, although the plastic roof part in the kit appeared in pretty much new condition. The black plastic ventilator parts popped into the holes along the ridges of the roof. Most of them seemed to stay in place fine with just a push fit, but the last 2 seemed very loose, so I put some tack glue into the holes so that the ventilators wouldn't keep falling off as I was handling the roof. I undid the screws on one side of the shed to allow me to remove one of the walls. I initially used this small screwdriver, as it was the only one that I had near my workbench with a suitably sized head for slotted screws. Here's that wall removed. You can see that the screws were screwed into brass inserts in the roof part. With that wall removed, I could now add the pillars from the extension kit to make this the centre of the extended shed. It was clear that 2 of the pillars were meant to go at the ends, and the other 2 were meant to go in the middle positions. The pillars were screwed into the same fixings that had previously held the wall in place. Here's the first end pillar fixed in place. And here's one of the mid pillars fixed into the next position. And here are all 4 pillars fixed to the edge of the original roof where the wall was previously. So far, so good. Next, I screwed the roof part from the extension kit to the attachments on the other side of the pillars, as seen here, even if it's not quite in focus. So there's the extension roof section attached, albeit not really correctly, but I didn't realise that for a while. Then I attached the original wall to the far side of the new roof section. And this was what I had at this point. I wasn't very happy with the massive contrast between the weathered, or just dirty, roof on the left and the new clean roof on the right. I could, of course, have tried to clean the dirty roof, but I thought that the dirty roof actually looked better. So instead of cleaning the dirty roof, I tried to dirty the clean roof. Specifically, I gave it a light spray with brown paint. This didn't produce an exact match, but it did make the roofs harmonise together a bit better, I think. I also realised that I had originally put the extension roof on the wrong way round, so I had to take everything apart again. The roofs have windows on one side, and clearly all of the roof windows should point in the same direction. I believe they would normally be installed pointing to the north, so as to get relatively even light without direct sunlight. At this point I got really fed up working with that little screwdriver with the slot head screws, and I went and found a more suitable screwdriver from elsewhere in the house. I reinstalled the extension roof the right way round this time, with the windows facing in the same direction as the windows of the original roof. Then I reinstalled the side wall again. The 2 roof sections still don't match, but they look better than they did, and I think that they actually look better in normal light than they do in this picture. The wonky corner is at the left here. That wasn't from my fixing, that was the way that wall came attached to the original roof. I only noticed that it was wonky after reviewing these pictures, and I did fix it afterwards, loosening the screws and fitting the wall better against the roof. Here's the Super Quick shed, where I wanted now to put the Dublo shed. I lifted the Super Quick shed. As mentioned, I hadn't put buffer stops on the tracks inside the Super Quick shed. I placed the Dublo shed over those tracks. The extended Dublo shed could hold 4 tracks, but I only had 3 in place currently. I placed the Dublo shed with the pillars between the 2 forward tracks, leaving room for 1 more track on the side towards the goods depot. I placed buffer stops at the ends of the tracks. I adjusted the tracks a bit to make them fit neatly into the shed. I didn't screw the tracks or the buffer stops down at this point, as I do want to try to add a 4th track inside the shed. To add a 4th track inside the shed, I will need to branch it off from the 3rd track after the siding to the goods depot branches off. At this point, the only 3-rail point that I had in my possession was a left-hand non-isolating point. No use at all for making this change, which will require a right-hand isolating point. But I could use the point that I had to assess the geometry by placing it upside down. Clearly, it wasn't going to be possible to place a right-hand point immediately connected to the existing right-hand point for the goods siding, as there wouldn't be room for the plate with the point operating lever. So I was going to have to install the new point about a quarter straight further down towards the shed. I think that should still work, although I will have to cut track in order to do it. But I couldn't go ahead with this final part of the shed installation at this time, as I was waiting for some more points that I'd bought from the UK to arrive, and I'm still waiting for them. So there's the Dublo shed in place. As I say, I haven't screwed the tracks down at all, as I've got to mess with things again to fit the 4th track when my additional points come. So I'm just going to leave it like this for now until I get the points and I can do those final track modifications.